a material witness on an aggravated battery.
So my name is Steve Coyle. I worked for the city of Port Angeles from 1983 to 2010. Before that, I was a City of Forks police officer from 1980 to 1983. Before that, I was a U.S. Army military policeman from 1977 to 1980. So I've been involved in uniformed law enforcement since 1977. As I stated, I was a uniformed police officer in the City of Forks. At that time, Forks was a logging community, so it was very active. The bulk of the work there was disturbances downtown. You were the only policeman on duty at the time that it was happening. So your backup might be a county deputy that might be in town or might be 20 minutes away. So it was challenging quite often, even though it was a small town. And then in 1988, I moved into an investigative slot. I became a detective with Port Angeles Police Department. The bulk of my casework, once I got all the training that I needed to be a detective, the bulk of my casework was crimes against children. So I investigated crimes that varied from physical assault all the way up to child homicide. I did that specifically, child victim cases, for about 10 years, I guess. I spent hundreds of hours in interviews with child victims and with suspects and with witnesses. And that was a very challenging caseload, but very satisfying in a lot of ways. Anytime you can reach out and get a child out of a bad situation, it's worth doing. Unfortunately, not all the children survived being a victim. I did investigate several child victim homicides, and those were very trying as well. After a period of time in detectives, I was offered an opportunity to promote, and I promoted, went back to patrol as a line duty supervisor in uniform capacity. Did that for 2 or 3 more years, got promoted again from corporal to sergeant, was a line duty patrol sergeant for a year or so, and then I got moved back to detectives, and I was the detective sergeant for the last about 8 years, I suppose, of my career. I was in charge of the detectives group in Port Angeles. During the course of my 27, 28 years in Port Angeles, we saw a lot of changes. When I first came to Port Angeles, it was a working town, a blue-collar town, primarily a mill town. We had several mills running downtown Port Angeles. Eventually, Port Angeles started changing. The lumber industry started slowing down. The mills started closing. And the dichotomy sort of started changing from being primarily a blue-collar town to more of a tourist community. And then we had an influx of California retirees show up. The whole complexion of Port Angeles sort of started changing gradually to where it is now. Yeah, during the course of my career, like I said, I started in 1983. When I retired in 2010, the entire police department personnel had changed. Record clerks, dispatch, everybody was different the day I left than it was the day I started. So that's how the police departments turn over like that. It's doing that again now since I've left. There's been a lot of guys hired the 8 years that I've been gone that I haven't met. Doing business as a law enforcement officer is pretty much the same everywhere you go. What changes is technology. You know, the day-to-day contact is still the same. The ability to keep yourself from getting hurt is still the same. I mean, those kind of things stay the same, but technology changes. When I was first a detective, we did our own crime scenes, and we did hand sketches and measured with tape, triangulated with tape from the walls to get our evidence and the sketch and all that. That's evolved to when I retired, we would call up a state team that would show up with basically an inside GPS system. And they would set it up on a stand, like a camera stand, and they would do that whole room and every piece of evidence you had in that room in just a few hours. And then they would be able to print out a layover diagram that they could show up in court and lay it over and show you where each piece of evidence was. You know, technologies eventually got less expensive, more sophisticated, easier to use, and now the city has, if you go down there, I'm sure you'll see they've got a monitor set up in the patrol room that has pictures of cameras all over the city that they can refer to if they need to, or pull tape off of if that was serious crime. Like when I first started in 1980, most burglars were juveniles, and they were looking for, a thrill, or maybe looking to steal some booze or something. By the time I retired, most juveniles were adult drug users that were trying to fund their drug habit. So that changed dramatically. Obviously, adult drug users are a much more dangerous crowd than a high school kid that's looking for a six-pack of beer or a bottle of booze to steal at somebody's house.